Hello, my name is Matt Fleming. I work at the Hydrologic Engineering Center, and in this video we're continuing the conversation about plotting capabilities in HEC-DSSVue, and in here we're going to focus in on the different components of a plot. All right, let's go to the next slide. So in this slide we can see we have two viewports within a plot. The upper viewport is viewport 1. So there's always one column of viewports and multiple rows. The upper viewport is always referred to as viewport 1, so where my mouse is right now. And the lower viewport, if we had just two viewports, would be viewport 2. One on top, two on the bottom. You can have a different number of viewports. You'll notice that in this example here, we have two different data sets, flow and elevation. And since there's different parameters or different types of data, then that's why these two are stuck on two different viewports. If you wanted to combine these two data sets in one viewport, you could, and we'll talk more about that later on. All right, in addition to the viewports, we have different axes. Since we just have two data sets in this example, we only have one y-axis on both of these viewports. In viewport 1 on top, we have stage as the data set, and you'll notice that the axis is showing the data. It's being plotted with a range of about 2.5 up to 8, and the units here, feet, for the y-axis. For the bottom viewport, we have flow data. You can see the scale for the data that's being plotted here. Also, the x-axis along the bottom, that's going to be for most data sets, it's going to be your time component. For time series data, the time is going to be shown on the x-axis. If we had multiple data sets being plotted in the same viewport, then the second y-axis would be used, the y2 axis. So if you did have multiple data sets, the main axis, y1, is on the left, and the secondary axis, y2, is on the right. All right, the different data sets that you have in a plot, we're going to refer to that as curves, data curves. If you have different time series data, a separate curve is going to be used to plot that information in the viewports that you have in the plot. You'll notice at the bottom there is a legend. Let's get to the next slide here. There we go. There's the legend. And the legend is going to show you different information about the data. You'll see the line color, line style information in the legend. Also, you'll see that the program by default uses the Part B path name and the Part C path name to form the information or the label that's used in the legend. You'll have the opportunity to customize how that information is displayed. So if you want to use your own name in the legend, then you could do that as well. And then on the left side, we have a toolbar. And by default, there's only two tools associated with the toolbar. We have a select tool, which is the arrow tool there. If you use the select tool, then you can hover your mouse over a data set and get a value of the data. And then the zoom tool lets you zoom in on the data within a viewport, or you can zoom into the data on an axis. And let me show you how that works. I have an example plot opened up right now. I'm going to choose my select tool. It's chosen. And notice that when I hover my mouse on the top of the data, you're going to get a pop-up showing you the data set that the mouse is hovering over in the viewport. And you'll also notice it shows you the time component and the magnitude or the value of the data. So I could hover my mouse and you can see the value where the mouse is located. For zooming into data, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can simply drag a box in one of the viewports and zoom into the data like that. If you need to zoom back out, you're going to use the right mouse button and just click a few times and it will zoom back out for you. Another way to zoom in is you can zoom in on an axis. So for example, I'm going to zoom in on my time axis, my x-axis, to just January 23rd. So you notice I'm drawing the box just on the x-axis to zoom in that way. You can do the same for the y-axis. I'm going to zoom in on flow in my second viewport. I want to see everything from 800 CFS down to the low end of the scale. Okay, so those are different ways to zoom in. All right. So the checkpoint for this section of the presentation, which plot components show the scale of values or date and time? That's going to be your axis, your y-axis and your x-axis. What is the index of the bottom of two viewports? So remember, when you have multiple viewports, the first viewport is always on the top. The second one is going to be right below the first, and so on. So in my example here with 3 different viewports, the first one, this is viewport 1, the middle one is viewport 2, and the bottom is viewport 3. Okay, last question. What tools are available from the toolbar and what are they used for? We had the select tool, the arrow tool, so that you could hover your mouse over a data set and see the value. And then also the zoom tool. You can choose the zoom tool. You could zoom in on an axis, or you could also zoom in within the viewport as well. One more thing I forgot, I want to show you about the select tool, is if you select something in the legend, one of the data sets in the legend, notice how that data set is highlighted or bolded within the viewports. This comes in handy when you have multiple data sets plotted in the same viewport, so you can quickly see which one that you're selecting in the legend.